Yeah, however, the award has been given to the architects of AI. The 2025 award celebrates the rise of artificial intelligence, and it's one of the covers that it features a number of key industry leaders. So a really interesting choice. We can speak now, actually, to Billy Perrigo, who's a tech correspondent at Time magazine. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. So why this choice of not just one single individual, but a group of people in a growing industry?
Yeah, morning. Thanks for having me. So, Times Person of the Year is a recognition rather than an award. It's a recognition of the individual or the group of people who've had the biggest impact on the year. And this year, it became very apparent that artificial intelligence as a whole was a hugely influential force on the year. It's basically holding up the entire US stock market. Hundreds of millions of people around the world are now talking to chatbots every day, both for personal matters and their work lives. And it's unclear where the future leads. Do we have thinking machines that are going to, prevent humans from working in jobs and grow the economy 5 times over, as Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, who I interviewed for the story, proclaimed? Or are we on the brink of a massive market crash that leads to, devastation on the same level as the global financial crisis or potentially the Great Depression of the 1930s? We just don't know. And that's kind of why we decided that this story was too broad to be told through a single individual, as Person of the Year traditionally is, and why we felt that a globe-trotting story that told the story of how this technology worked, how it came about, what its risks are, was the appropriate way to tell the story this year.
But I appreciate your clarification of language as well, that the magazine rewards for recognition of the thing rather than awarding it. You're not choosing whether or not this is good for humanity or not, and we'll come on to some of that. Let's, if I can, Andy, in the gallery, can you bring up that cover where they're sitting on the girder, and we can get Billy to talk us through who's on there, because this is fascinating. Billy, give us, many people sort of recognise this image from, I said earlier, the 1930s of those construction works. I'm not sure it's from the 30s. Billy, do you know when that original image of those guys sitting there with their lunch on the girder was shot, and who's on this girder?
I actually don't know when it was photographed. I would assume around the 1920s when they were.
I'm going to use AI to look it up.
Yeah.
You keep talking, Billy, while Anna checks the internet.
So we have Mark Zuckerberg on the left, CEO of Facebook, Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, who is a large microchip manufacturer, Elon Musk, who owns an AI company alongside many other famous companies, including Tesla and SpaceX. In the middle, we have Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, who was the kind of set-piece interview for this story. NVIDIA, of course, first $5 trillion company who makes the microchips that power the vast majority of the AI revolution. Next to him is Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, creator of ChatGPT, which was the breakout chatbot that really kickstarted the AI revolution in 2022. And next to him is Demis Hassabis, British, CEO of Google DeepMind, longtime evangelist for AI and what he calls artificial general intelligence, which is this hypothetical future technology that can not only do your menial tasks for you via a web interface, but can make new scientific discoveries, etc. Next to him is Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, the maker of the chatbot Claude, which is a kind of cult favorite AI tool in Silicon Valley and increasingly among enterprises globally. Next to him is Fei-Fei Li, who is a computer scientist at Stanford University, who's called the godmother of AI.
Brilliantly done and brilliantly remembered there, actually. And Kamala, you were quite right. 1932, construction workers having their lunch on a steel beam of the RCA building. Just looked it up. But Billy, tell us about how unusual or not it is for Time not to recognise just one individual, but more than one. Is this a first?
It's not a first. It's happened several times before. So in 1986, we recognised our first machine of the year, which was the personal computer, which is really a recognition of how technology is going to change the future. It proved remarkably prescient, I think. In 2006, we featured You as Person of the Year. That was a story about the impact that the internet and digital communities would have on the future. And so that was a probably our most expansive pick ever. I believe 6 billion people at the time. And even in more recent years, we've had the Silence Breakers. That was in 2017, which recognized the Me Too movement and the women behind it speaking up about sexual harassment and assault. And what we called the Guardians in 2018. They were a group of journalists who were fighting around the world for truth and against autocracy and authoritarianism and against disinformation.
I mean, a topic that we were discussing just this very morning on the number of journalists killed and jailed around the world. Look, so on that good, you've got all these people who are involved in AI. Do they run sort of the gamut from the evangelists to those who are critical of it as well? And does that feature within this topic? Because as you've pointed out in your answers to us, Billy, not everyone is completely sold on AI's, I guess, utility to make humanity better.
Yeah, that's very true. So what I would say is this year's choice isn't actually just these 8 individuals. These are some of the people who have driven AI into daily life and the wider economy most significantly. But really what the choice recognizes is everyone who has made artificial intelligence into the kind of globe-spanning technology and artifact that it is today. And the story does talk not just about the CEOs and the industrialists, but also the people who are worried, the people who have sometimes suffered very tragic consequences. My colleague Andrew Chow, my co-author on the story, interviewed the parents of Adam Rain, this California teenager who very tragically died by suicide earlier this year after having long, detailed conversations with ChatGPT in which he discussed suicidal ideation, and the bot didn't crucially point him in the right direction. It encouraged him to hide marks of self-harm, allegedly from his parents. And that is a very real and exemplifying case of the way that these chatbots, which, by the way, even the people building them don't quite understand how they work, can lead to tragic consequences when hundreds of millions of people around the world are talking to them. We also spoke to economists who are worried that the US stock market, which is kind of running on wild highs at the moment after a year of major boom time, might be teetering on the edge of a precipice. So the story kind of not only speaks to the people who are making it happen, the CEOs, but also tries to zoom out and take stock of this historic moment and bring in the criticism as well as the optimism.
Yeah, so interesting and sparking so many conversations as well. But just finally, I really want to get a little insight into how the whole selection process works. I mean, who decides this? Is it a big team who come in with their own particular favourites and they argue it out? How do you decide who gets recognised in this way?
Yeah, it's one of the coolest parts of the year in the newsroom. We have a meeting every autumn, every September, October, where the entire newsroom comes together. We pitch people who we believe should be the person of the year in advance, and then we hash it out. We have arguments. There's a lot of disagreement, and then
can you
after
tell us who
that,
came close?
So the people you might expect were discussed in that meeting. We publish a shortlist every year. I think that this year's one is going to come out soon. Like, for example, Trump was mentioned in that meeting quite obviously, and we discussed.
Putin mentioned?
Now you're putting me on the spot. I cannot remember. But we have big discussions every year about who should be person of the year, and really there is a good argument for many people to be person of the year every year. And what I would say is, in this story, Trump is a central character, as is Xi, the president of China, because AI has become a matter of geopolitics. And so it's not just the tech CEOs, it's also the politicians who are turning this into a new arms race, a new Cold War, essentially.